something in common. Oh, thank God! The words filtered in before Connor was even properly awake. Connor! He heard, and then stronger. Connor! His grandma's voice. He opened his eyes, sitting up slowly. Night had fallen. How long had he been asleep? He looked around. He was still on the hill behind his house, nestled in the roots of the yew tree towering over him. He looked up. It was just a tree. But he could swear that it also wasn't. Connor! His grandma was running from the direction of the church, and he could see her car parked on the road beyond, its lights on, its engine running. He stood as she ran to him, her face filled with annoyance and relief, and something he recognized with a sinking stomach. Oh, thank God! Thank God! She shouted as she reached him. And then she did a surprising thing. She grabbed him in a hug so hard they both nearly fell over. Only Connor catching them on the tree trunk stopped them. Then she let him go and really started shouting. Where have you been? She practically screamed. I've been searching for hours. I've been frantic, Connor. What the hell were you thinking? There was something I needed to do, Connor said, but she was already pulling on his arm. No time, she said. We have to go. We have to go now. She let go of him and actually sprinted back to her car, which was such a troubling thing to see that Connor ran after her almost automatically, jumping in the passenger side and not even getting the door closed before she drove off with a screech of tires. He didn't dare ask why they were hurrying. Connor, his grandma said, as the car raced down the road at an alarming speed. It was only when he looked at her that he saw how much she was crying. Shaking, too. Connor, you just can't. She shook some more. Then he saw her grip on the steering wheel even harder. Grandma, he started to say. Don't, she said. Just don't. They drove in silence for a while, sailing through stop signs with barely a look. Connor rechecked his seatbelt. Grandma? Connor asked, bracing himself as they flew over a bump. She kept speeding on. I'm sorry, he said, quietly. She laughed at this, a sad, thick laugh. She shook her head. It doesn't matter, she said. It doesn't matter. It doesn't? Of course it doesn't, she said, and she started to cry again. But she wasn't the kind of grandma who was going to let crying get in the way of her talking. You know, Connor, she said, you and me, not the most natural fit, are we? No, Connor said, I guess not. I guess not either. She tore around a corner so fast, Connor had to grab onto the door handle to stay upright. But we're going to have to learn, you know, she said. Connor swallowed. I know. His grandma made a little sobbing noise. You do know, don't you? She said. Of course you do. She coughed to clear her throat as she quickly looked both ways at an approaching crossroads before driving right through the red light. Connor wondered how late it was. There was hardly any traffic around. But you know what, grandson? His grandma said. We have something in common. We do? Connor asked, as the hospital lurched into view down the road. Oh, yes, his grandma said, pressing even harder on the accelerator, and he saw that her tears were still coming. What's that? He asked. She pulled into the first empty spot she saw on the road near the hospital, running her car up onto a curb with a thudding stop. Your mum, she said, looking at him full on. That's what we have in common. Connor didn't say anything, but he knew what she meant. His mum was her daughter, and she was the most important person either of them knew. That was a lot to have in common. It was certainly a place to start. His grandma turned off the engine and opened her door. We have to hurry, she said.